Welcome to today's episode on Business Growth Code. I'm your host, Subha Rajendran, and today's guest on the episode is Philip.
Telehealth has been a pretty hot topic nowadays, and to see where it's going forward, he's got a lot of insights. And I just really want to know more about what he does with his company, and he's going to give a deep dive into his company today, at least with this episode. And he's going to talk around more about the trends and how he sees his company moving forward. But without further ado, I'm going to give it off to Philip to introduce himself, and we'll go from there. Hey, Philip, how are you going?
Hi, Suba. Thank you so much for having me and letting me have a chance to tell our story.
Yeah, perfect. First of all, thanks a lot for joining in to this podcast. Really appreciate you taking your time and jumping onto it. Let's get started with the first question, right? And let's see how it goes. I just want to know a little bit about your role and how it fits into the bigger picture in Apportis, a bit about yourself in there.
Sure. Well, thank you. I have been the CEO, founder of Apportis. We're actually just celebrated our 10th year. We're in the mental health, substance misuse, and prevention space. We focus on families, youth, and anywhere from dealing with the trauma through resources to support them, scaffold them as they work on their own journeys, and then how do we deal with the handoffs? And we're a digital solution that works alongside telemedicine providers as well as a standalone resources. So on the back end, we are also a data analytics tool for all of our connected partners so they can start seeing the impact of what they're doing, either from how they're serving their clientele, as well as the nonprofits that are interconnected within the system so they can work on their resources and funding for further.
Wow. Wow. There's a lot to compress in over there. We could probably break it down. So you service the different industries such as, schools, or you got colleges and universities in there.
Yep.
You have first responders and plus agencies too. So these are who you service all of this.
Yeah, I'll go into markets here. So the markets Apportis serves has focus on, in reality, it's a single user. What is that person dealing with? And then who are the people that surround them? What community they're in? And how do the organizations that fit into that community serve that one user? But if you break it into larger segments, we work with schools, their school districts. And then if we work in the school district, we work focus on that single student. But that single student has parents or guardians. They have that teacher. They have that staff that surrounds them. They have the community that the counselors help lean on for support and for information. So this ever expanding interconnectivity of resources is what we focus on. So we do it through the school districts, we do it through universities, we work with agencies, nonprofits, first responders, and veterans is where another focus in 2026, where we want to mitigate the problems that our veterans are facing and the high suicide rates that we're seeing in the veteran space and surprisingly in the farmer space. So we're also talking with the Farm Bureau for those that are older that are struggling with finances and the challenges that they're facing now. What are they dealing with? Their own mental health, depression, things, and hopefully does not lead to self-harm. And from that, we have a system that mitigates this and puts them in front of people to help them deal with those kind of problems.
You're doing something really good to the community. I really hope that works in 2026.
We're not the ultimate solution. We understand that mental health and substance misuse leading to any self-harm or any of these kind of challenges takes lots of integrated partnerships and materials and people. So that's our system, is to tightly integrate this, deliver resources that are already in their community, but more in an organized fashion. So we work with the Suicide Prevention Foundation, the NAMI, which is a nonprofit that deals with mental health and in America, as well as the state agencies, federal agencies, to deliver materials that are evidence-based. And that's really one of the big things that the challenge our industry is seeing is companies that are coming in, for-profit companies such as mine, Apportis, will lean into web scrape materials that might not be evidence-based, but we do not do that. We focus on materials that are cited, have research behind them. We partner with the Ohio State University here in Columbus, Ohio, to oversee what we're doing, making sure there's efficacy to it. We're not putting materials in that could endanger the youth, endanger the families, lead them in the wrong direction. So that's probably one of the big challenges that any company that's coming into our space has to pay attention to and work with the right people.
That's That's perfectly put. It's a really important point. That is a difficult thing to do when you have a lot of material out over there going
Right.
across different markets. You actually getting all that research backed information, compressing it, packaging it up to cater to your market is really wonderful. That's good. It's all ages, I'm guessing, from top to bottom.
Yeah, indeed. So we have the guide rails in place for youth under 18 years of age. So there are certain things that we have to do to make sure that we work with them in a manner that's appropriate for their age. And then over 18, we can offer more things like screening tools for that they can work on anonymously. I'm struggling with my anxiety, my depression. Maybe I'm dealing with alcohol. Maybe I have a gambling addiction. But let's take a look at it. You can do it anonymously, see where you stand, get immediate feedback, get resources that you could work on that does not alert your insurance company, does not alert the union that you're working in. That's really important, and certainly in the first responder space, because the unions that oversee the police and the fire, that's a red flag if you're dealing with alcohol issues. But here you can do it on your own time. And if you do need to reach out, there's pathways. So our system morphs into sort of a wayfinding tool for materials that are within the system, as well as what's available to you in your community, what's available to you at your union, who should you talk to, or launch a counseling service that is HIPAA compliant, very similar to what we're doing right now.
Fantastic. Wow. That is,
I like WOWs.
that's well thought out.
We're in the WOW game. In reality.
Yeah, true. I mean, once it's delivered, maybe the final user of it wouldn't know how this whole thing came through, but when it works, it's a well thought out system. You've
Yes.
thought of different angles from compliance to research backed information, how it's delivered in the appropriate way to different ages, different agencies.
Hey, I'm not smart enough to think all of this myself. It takes a lot of partnerships and then continual growth. So, and I'd always, any telehealth company that gets into this space can look at it and say, well, we have this system. And then they look at the problem and say, well, that's a nail that this hammer can fix. Well, you got to make sure that there's a whole lot of other things that are in play, especially with mental health, because what's emerging at this moment could be from a trauma that happened years ago that have been compounded by maybe some social health issues. Maybe they're dealing with food insecurity. Maybe they're dealing with housing insecurity. Maybe their job is unfulfilling, or maybe they're out of work. Or they're battling health issues on top of mental health issues. You have to understand this huge playing field and then align the right materials at the right moment to help those people.
That's actually a good explanation. I know you cut it short, but we'll dive into that deeper into another episode. I know you're celebrating the 10th year, which means there's plenty which has gone in there. How does your typical day look like?
Right now, this year has been a bit of a challenge just because of certain things that are happening in the United States, and then where does mental health fit in the aggregate? Everybody understands that this is a problem. It's just, how do we approach it? What systems do we need to have in place? What are the funding sources? So that's the other issue in our side, where we don't have universal health care. So private insurance. So we work with insurance companies to make sure that we can deliver on their needs. We white label everything that we do. So the name Apportis doesn't mean anything to anyone other than to the organizations that bring us aboard. Apportis is Latin for gateway. So we're just trying to provide a gateway to their clients to broaden their impact. If a stat that we throw around is, if you have a population of 100 users and they're struggling with their mental health, of those 100, 4-ish, plus or minus 2 or 3, might need actual clinician counseling, right? Because they're in that, oh my gosh, space. We really need to get in there. The others are on a spectrum, and we're trying to provide the materials for that, the whole 100, and then identify those that need to be handed off. So they're triaged and they're handed off in a correct manner, that have all of the information that those clinicians and counselors, or in the case of, and heaven forbid, they're heading towards self-harm, we have the suicide prevention systems built into it. So at any moment, they can launch, they can text, chat with actual live counselors to deal with and get them stabilized. And then we can start addressing the problems. So we look to serve all 100, but each one is so vitally important that we also then provide free versions to the parents, to the staff and faculty. So their understanding of what's happening in front of them is better, right? You might be a great science teacher, but you have no idea what the student is dealing with or what brought them to the state that you might think they're just an agitated student or they're a disruptive student. But there are signs. And so part of it is also one of our fantastic partners, Star Commonwealth, creates materials for the staff and faculty so they can understand trauma. What do they see in front of them? How do we deal with it? We call it CEUs, accreditations. And so the staff and faculty through our system can be accredited. It's a great leg up for the teacher, but they also have a better understanding of what's happening in front of them in the classroom.
That's a real important information for the teachers to know about their students. I'm guessing what this would do is, cut off any sensitive information, and it'll just, provide what the teacher needs to know,
right,
for more of a management plan. Wow, that's brilliant. So now just moving into the industry side of it, what major shifts are you seeing in your industry right now?
Indeed. Yeah, that's a great question because it is almost seismic. When I created this idea and the genesis of this idea, and then there's multiple people that have all been involved, certainly. But it was a lot of the companies that were getting into the space were looking at it as, I just need to make this app. I need to make a mindfulness app. I need something to calm the mind, and breathing exercise. I need a thing. And they all have value, but if you're dealing with trauma, you might dealing with a family situation. Breathing is not going to feed them. Breathing is not going to find them a warm bed. Breathing might take the moment just to clarify where they're at, how they want to deal with the next moment, but there's a lot of things that they have to unpack and they have to deal with. When we started, we realized we need this broad spectrum piece. And the more that we've worked with our guidance from Ohio State University and the College of Social Work, as well as professors that we interact with. Dr. Scotty Cash is invaluable, who helps guide us in what's optimal and has efficacy. These one-offs were the darlings of the VC world. Everybody's like, oh, this is simple. I'm just going to do this and I'm going to put it out there. I'm going to charge a couple bucks. And there we have something in the App Store. The value of that had its peak and moment, but they're starting to realize, as the venture capitalists and those that are looking to broaden the space, realizing you need to have a broad spectrum solution. All of a sudden, the spotlight's coming much more on what we do. And we think we're quite unique in this space because of how we're dealing with the community and how we're dealing with the interconnectivity of valued partners of whatever institution deploys us, whether it be the university, whether it be a school district, whether it be a local police precinct or a veterans affairs of a state. So it's a very interesting and challenging time, and you're going to see a bigger shift, I believe, in 2026 to this sort of acquisitions and more focus in this space.
So there's a lot more companies which are just starting up in focusing on, for example, mindfulness, but it does not really target the broader picture. That's where companies which look at the broader picture, like yourself, expanding into continuous research goes into it. That's really good to know. So companies like this, which forms out, right? There's going to be venture capitalists who will probably come and take over, and they'd potentially integrate it with another arm of another business. That's how they go broader, most likely. But so this whole trend of all these companies starting up, how does it really, impact your business or any of your growth strategies and so on?
Oh, that's also a very good question. We're now at this stage where we're mature of a platform, we're mature of a product. So the organizations that we talk to might be something that serves a large population. So we're currently waiting on decision from the Air Force, the U.S. Air Force, for dealing with current and retired airmen and their families and their mental health. And they have children on their Air Force base. How do they deal with this? And how can you make a readied arm of our defense program if maybe that airman is struggling with a whole lot of things that the Air Force doesn't know about? So how can we do it with a low digital lift? So when we talk to organizations that might acquire us or have interest in investing or doing something more of an integrated solution, it's typically a bigger, broader component. Angels, we're past that, and that's the life cycle of every small company and small startup you have to deal with here. angels, you start to get some equity partners. You're looking at your Series A, you might be doing some other things. We're making that big iterative leap in 2026 from we're doing to now we're pulling the big revenue levers. Even though it does feel a little awkward to talk about revenue when you're also talking about mental health and substance misuse. But the reality is we're a for-profit company. I have equity partners, and we have to pay bills. So
100%. I agree with that. This is my take as well. I think there's nothing wrong with revenue because you do need that to provide a good quality product out there. And that's where you can do
Mhm.
your research and development. And if you want that quality out,
Mhm.
it might seem like there's a big number being earned back, but then it also is poured back into the company
Mhm.
to cater to the audience, right? Which is not
Indeed.
probably seen out too much, but it actually shows the health of a company
Mhm.
and how many people are actually using your product, which is great. That's a good segue towards just
Okay.
understanding what's working really well for you right now, or what's been frustrating from a company angle.
Sure. I think the thing that I'll work backwards from frustration to looking forward to in this coming year. So the frustration we have is just sort of the uncertainty that we're dealing with here in the US market. I can talk all day about what we do. I have a passion for it. I have a passion for our people and how we can hopefully make the world a bit of a better place. Now, of course, the challenges are, funding. How do we do this? How do we deploy this? Um, so the uncertainty of the moment is sort of what we have been dealing with in 2025. Just these ever shifting um, landscape. Now, one of the things that we've always done, is we understand through school districts, either rural or urban, each of them have their own unique challenges to that space. So a rural school district might not want material on certain topics. They have all the power. We don't provide them this library, but they can turn things off, turn things on. They understand this is going to be challenged by the parents. This is going to be challenged by the school board. We're just going to provide you the wide range of materials, and then do with it what you think is best. But you also have the opportunity to put materials in and distribute it out that you've created that are unique to your school or community or situation. So the current political situation is a bit of a challenge. The funding is also a little bit of a challenge in 2025 because countries are looking at where to spend the money and how do they want it. What do they want to deliver to their population? So we hope that 2026 we have a bit of a clear insight into this. But at the same time, now this is getting to the positive side, we've made so much inroads into already school districts, into the conversation, not only in Ohio, but in other states and at the national level. So we have some projects like the Air Force project that we hope that comes to fruition. We're talking with rural Appalachia. Ohio is one of the 13 states that is in the Appalachian sector. There's a mountain range that runs it, and this is where it's very rural. Broadband Wi-Fi is a challenge. Resources, clinicians in that community is a challenge. So there are certain counties in Ohio where for a family to have their young son or daughter see a psychiatrist, they might have to drive 2.5 hours. So telehealth and the digital solutions is immense value to that community and to that one user and to that one family. Now, the other piece of the puzzle is our systems work without Wi-Fi or broadband. So our genesis, if you look us up on the internet and YouTube and things like that, we won the Ohio Opioid Technology Challenge, the second round. And this was the ability to connect to those dealing with opioid, heroin, things in the moment so they could actually get to resources. And how do they deal with that in that moment? So we worked specifically down in the Appalachian area where, again, Wi-Fi is a challenge. Cellular connectivity is a challenge. This has brought us in connection with the Indian reservations. So the same thing, broadband is an issue, under-resourced, but we have solutions that can help in that space. So 2026, we're really excited about. We have so many things in the pipeline and each one of them is something I could talk about for hours because, again, you're helping that one person, but that one person expands out into a whole community.
That's so true. It's a really good point about Wi-Fi and data challenges where
Mhm.
people cannot really reach out to applications which need that. And you know what? Health is a non-negotiable, I think. everyone
Mhm.
has a right to it, and your tool actually could solve the problem, which is
Right.
which
We
is
hope.
fantastic. That could be groundbreaking, right? I'm not sure how many companies do have that, but you could actually reach out to remote areas where they have unstable
Mhm.
connections or no
Mhm.
connections even,
Right.
and they have access to your portal plus clinicians. I'm guessing you do have clinicians as well who are your advisors or in the background.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we have social workers and clinicians on our side that, again, make sure that we do everything correctly. And then if we're deployed in a community, the community might say, hey, we value these psychiatry programs or this hospital system or this. So we're a digital solution. It's easy enough for us to make that connection. But we also have telehealth partners that we can just turn on and then they're right there. So they're culturally competent, making sure that they meet what the community needs to see on the other side of that screen.
that's is something. You have a complete system in there, which
Indeed.
reaches out to a lot of people
Yeah.
across the globe. Moving on towards understanding it, what sort of metrics are you
Mm,
most focused on improving? I know
gotcha.
you're starting on going into the new space in 2026, but apart from that, I mean, that's obviously one of it which you've been working on, and
Hmm.
that's a new
Hmm.
venture in.
Hmm.
What metrics are you most focused on improving?
Of course, we want to do everything for everyone. You just can't. But one of the things that we have an opportunity going into the new year that is going to be one of the main drivers of metrics that not only internally, as we talk to, again, we're a for-profit company. I need to talk to those venture capitalists. I need to talk to those organizations that have deeper interest in integrating our solution into their product. And one of them is into the workspace. So we're seeing a migration of workers quietly leaving companies. They're just fed up, tired. Maybe they're being overlooked. Maybe they're just not meeting the needs. And now jobs are getting a little tougher. There's certainly all different kind of challenges and always in the world. But can a corporation company provide a solution that they can deliver to their employees outside of the ERPs, outside of the things that are connected to the insurance and all the oversight that's private that they can work on. It's a trusted network. And then that employee might be able to find the solution or workflows to move them down the path to mental clarity, dealing with maybe a gambling addiction, or substance misuse, things like that. The employee doesn't want the employer to know about, but here's a way that they can get this access. To the employer side, what we do, and for all of our clients, is we have aggregated individual data scrubbed analytics, understanding what's troubling people. You're seeing anxiety rise. Why? You're not seeing individual people, but you're seeing trend analysis. So you can start pre-planning. You can have events, have materials ready. Not only in the schools you're seeing it, maybe that leads to you're seeing bullying and an uptick at this one middle school. Or in the marketing department, they're struggling with anxiety. Saying, all right, well, let's have a conversation. Let's get some sort of something happening where we put resources in front of them. Whether they use to consume it is up to the individual user, and that's always the individual user's rights. But what we do is we take away the insurance and the healthcare oversight that is peering down at this one employee, where HR might be going, "Yeah, well, this is a troublesome employee, and we think they're drinking. Let's let that person work on themselves and get help rather than being kind of hit over the head with it." That's our big
Perfect.
2026 analytics and sort of the agenda for next year.
That's perfectly put. Well, I really hope we get to see that end of it.
Indeed.
That'll be fantastic with that data, because the trends are important to you, I guess, to improve your product as well and better cater
Hmm.
to all the
Yes.
users.
Or on just analytics. I'll
Yeah, I
bring
can imagine.
charts.
It's a really important topic, and
Hmm.
how you use analytics and
Hmm.
how you could make this whole telehealth space better,
Hmm.
especially with your
Hmm.
product. Using analytics to cater to different kinds of audiences.
Right.
How do you analyze the trends,
Hmm.
etc.? So I'm just going to go into a different segue now. I'm just trying to understand, where do you want to be in the next 6 to 12 months from now?
Hmm.
You have that whole plan laid out towards your expanding
Hmm.
into different markets, and
Hmm.
you want to see the analytics side of
Hmm.
it as well. But what
Yeah.
else? Where do you want to see the next 6 months and the next 12 months? How do you How do you
Fair
see that?
point. Fair point. I think so. The next 6 months, we want to deploy on the contracts and things that we have in place for 2025 that are all going to be sort of tumbling into place. So we're very excited about that because there's a lot of integration components that we've been doing on the back end, moving from we've expanded what we can do. We've expanded the systems and our partnership integrations. So that's what's happening currently. And we're going to be deploying a lot of that in the beginning of January. In 12 months, our goal is to not only deliver on the numbers, but we need to start taking a hard look at, okay, we now have a broad spectrum solution that has pieces that where do we fit best? Because that's going to be the question of equity partners. Okay, I believe in Apportis. I believe in Phil Payne. Where do we go next that I, as an equity partner, can get value for my trust and investment? So that's going to be that, after our initial 6 months of 2026, we're gonna have to have a serious conversation and say, okay, here it is, and we'll start laying out the groundwork for that kind of a roadshow. I'll be leaning into a CFO to start guiding me. I'm a casual entrepreneur. I'm better at the marketing and the big picture. As an entrepreneur, this is my first attempt, and I could always be better. And so I need to surround myself with those that know. And come summer, we'll start having the road shows and start looking to what's that next iterative growth leap? How do we staff up for that next expansion is where I want to get to.
Fantastic. I think, well, you're a smart man, Phil, from what you're saying, because you have been, from what you've been talking about, I can say that, you've got a plan ahead, you got a mission. You've been there for the past 10 years, and you're definitely going to achieve it. Well, all the best with that, for sure.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Suba, I really do appreciate the thoughtful questions and the opportunity to tell our story. Again, I can talk about anything or any one thing or the whole thing of what we do all day, and I'll talk your ear off. So, but it's just we got great people and we have such a passion for what we do.
Yeah, well, that's glad to hear that, and appreciate it. One last one before we
Please.
wrap up, and
Okay.
I know you mentioned your goals to what you're going to do in the next 6 to 12 months, how you want to achieve it. If you had a magic wand, let's say, right? Magic wand out over there. And let's say if you had to fix one thing in your business, right? One thing in your business that's holding you back or, slowing it down or so, what would that one thing be?
Probably the funding source. So
right,
because we deal with education, initially was school districts, universities, you're dealing with state and federal funding sources, Department of Education, Department of Higher Education. So as we morph into more spaces that make sense, such as the Veterans Affairs, such as HR, and for an actual medicine, right? So talking with hospital systems, how we can supplement what they do at a very low lift to them and provide a wider range of support materials to make their impact much bigger in the community. And that can also be at the telehealth company. So a large telehealth company could utilize our system to enhance their product, get more usage, triage the right people to actually make that video connection, which costs a lot more because you're going to have a live clinician on the other end having that conversation than a low lift, evidence-based digital tool set that we provide. So that's going to be the big magic wand, changing the narrative of who we help to who are the people that employ us to help. So I think the healthcare systems is what we're going to be focused on in 2026 to pull that big lever.
That makes a lot of sense because the funding angle is definitely going to play a big play in there. And really, I mean, your product is fairly unique where it could cater to other telehealth providers starting up or who are halfway through over there who do not have the system. And there could be quite a number of them because you're established your processes in this place, right?
Indeed.
Yeah.
I'm a 58-year-old dad, so I have a lot of cheesy dad comments. And one of them is that, hey, we're the BASF of telehealth. We don't do the telehealth. We make your telehealth better. So how do we support what your mission is, broaden it, and then create big, deep impact? So again, you're concentrating on that one person, but that one person has a whole system around them. And they all have to be, another one of my dad things I'll say is we're trying to create a gravity around that youth or that person. So we're providing materials and support and things, but everybody that sees that person has the right materials and resources as they look in to help that person. So there's a center of gravity on that person that we're helping. Maybe I should change the name of the
Perfect.
company.
That's a pretty good idea.
All right, thanks. Well, Suba,
So
I
for this
certainly
episode,
appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate
yeah,
everything you've asked.
no, it's fantastic to have you on the show, and it's been enlightening. To be honest, there's potential for a series of episodes because there's plenty of experience from your side. There's a lot where your company is going towards. So many segues. We didn't even touch deep into so many of them. We shall branch out into a few more episodes coming
Okay.
forward. But for now, thanks a lot,
Oh my
Phil, for
gosh.
joining in. Really appreciate it.
Thank you all.
And we'll catch you in the next one. Yeah.
Suba, appreciate you. And I look forward to our next conversation. And I'm hoping that your listeners got some value out of this.